I finally get to tell the whole story. I've been teasing this a lot, but obviously I just got back now a couple weeks ago from Ukraine, and the day after we got back from the front lines and we went back to the capital city, Kyiv, Caolan, who took me on the trip, and I sat down for a long form conversation and really walked through all that we could remember about that experience, the insane fear that we felt, the strikes that were happening around us, my takeaway, his takeaway, the broader analysis of now with that experience, what we understand Russia's invasion to be. I do encourage you to stick around through the whole interview because we do take it slow all the way through the experience from beginning to end, and some of the most impactful interviews that we had with soldiers and conversations with civilians were shown a little bit later. And I will just note for podcast listeners, as you're listening, if it randomly breaks away from our conversation and you just hear someone's voice, it's probably a military psychologist or a soldier telling their story and giving their experience. Take a listen.
So it's been quite a week.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think,
It has.
looking back? I mean, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember even how this started. Was there a moment where we just text each other and said, you know what, let's just go. Let's just go to Ukraine?
Ooh, okay, we're really going back. Yeah, I remember we collaborated for the first time. And then I think after the call was, or after the interview was over, you were like, hey, if you want to come, you know, you're welcome, which is kind of a general thing people say. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. As if. And then the second time you said the same thing, you should come and we could explore. And I was kind of picturing maybe coming to Kyiv and then that being it. And then it wasn't until I think, and then I just said, I'll come, let's do it. And I don't think it was until 3 days before I got here when you said, oh, and by the way, we're going to go to the front lines.
Yeah, I mean, I always invite people to come to Ukraine, but immediately you were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I actually kind of had a feeling that you would. And it's always just a few days before that it kind of starts to hit you, like exactly where we're going to go. But I was going to go to the front anyway, because I spend every single month time there. And April, who ended up driving us there, was like, I hear you have a guest coming. Or, you know, I have a spare room. Do you want to try it out? And I was pretty 50-50 on bringing you because these places are extremely dangerous. You know, there's artillery going off everywhere, but to get a full picture of what's actually happening in Ukraine, I thought just coming to Kyiv isn't quite enough. So I really wasn't sure what your reaction would be. What did you think when I asked you?
I remember right whenever, I think you called me to say that, and right whenever you hung up, I turned to the guys, my producers and my friends, and I was like, I have to, right? I have to. I mean, it feels like very few people even get the opportunity, much less would want to, like you said, given the dangers, but I'm tired of so many people pontificating on life or death subjects who seemingly have very little knowledge or firsthand experience about the subjects. I said before, it's not that you can't be informed and never had a first-hand experience, but it definitely helps. And it feels like in our current political dialogue, frequently the least informed people are shouting the loudest. And so we are seeing that. That's why Russian propaganda is so effective, is because when targeted at an American audience, it's a lot of people who aren't really going to take the time to fact check it. And it's been winning even into our government in many ways. So I wanted to kind of practice what I preach. So I wasn't really I didn't have to weigh the decision. I knew I had to.
You can't say that our motivation is decreasing in any way, because motivation is made up of certain factors. And in our case, it's that this is our land and our home. Our family, our children, our parents live here. And for us, this is more than motivation. It's our calling, because we are protecting our family and our great home, which is all of Ukraine, because our relatives, our acquaintances, and friends are all scattered throughout the country, and we all stand together for this. This isn't just motivation. Motivation can be a temporary phenomenon. But we have values that don't compel us, but rather guide us, and that we choose to uphold and defend.
Most journalists, even most war journalists who have covered places like this, haven't gone to places that you've gone to. And I was blown away when you said yes, because it shows you really want to get to the truth. But it's been a wild week. You literally went within 10 kilometers of the Russians to the front line from festivals all across this country. But I thought the best way to just debrief, now that it's Friday, now that it's your last day, is just to go back from the beginning.
Yeah.
And try and just remember this trip, because I guess when we're in situations like this, it's hard to even remember what we did this morning.
I know. We've both been wildly jotting down things, but then I read them, I'm like, I don't even know how to explain this.
Yeah, I'm like, did that actually happen? No.
Because I agree. I just told you on the walk over here, I got a call and someone was like, tell me about it. And I just said, I will eventually. I can't think right now. I can't think. I can't articulate well anything. So I'm good, but goodbye. So I do want to, it's nice that we're doing this so that we can kind of, right now, before all of our memory drains, walk through it. Where should we start?
Well, we should start with you arriving in Ukraine. I remember we were trying to figure out, do you get a cab? Do you get a train? It's impossible to fly into this country because the Russians will shoot down the civilian airliners. So you ended up driving in. And I remember you were saying that you were translating with the driver the whole time because she wasn't speaking English. But there was a few cute moments, right?
Yeah. So the option we chose, like you said, was honestly the much more pampered option. So I was grateful for that, because I just got to get a driver straight from Warsaw all the way into Kyiv, but she only spoke Ukrainian. And so we were communicating we both had Google Translate open. We'd type out a big paragraph and then click like the text to speech, and then it would read out in that person's language the sentence, and then we just went back and forth. And it was really sad at the beginning because she could tell I was kind of flustered or didn't know what to do at the border checkpoints. And so then she asked kind of tongue-in-cheek, is this your first time? And I was like, yes. And then she said, in this long paragraph, it took her, I was just sitting like, what is she writing? It was just typing as we were sitting waiting to go through the border. Do you know what's happening here? Do you know that there's a war here? And I was like, yeah, I do. It would be very strange if I didn't know that. And she started warning me about different things to stay safe. And it was just really sad to see in her face. She was having fun with the conversation, and then for it to kind of drain and feel dread to explain to me what has been happening to her country. But then it was cute because we just kept going. And then she would, while she was driving, like put the microphone up, speaking Ukrainian back to me. So it was like the whole drive we were just Google translating back and forth to each other. I know her pretty well now.
Well, I'm glad that you got in before, just after curfew as well. Did you know much about curfew before you got here, or was that kind of like an alien thing?
I mean, I know the concept well enough, so it wasn't surprising. It makes sense. They have to get people off the street at a certain time.
So I guess I was a little worried that you'd have to wait outside the city for hours, because that's what happens in the cities. You basically have to queue up, lorries, everything, and then you can get in. But you managed to get in around 6 a.m. and you just fall straight asleep. You were just like, okay, I'm finally in.
Yeah, so that was rough because I left. And this is just normal travel stuff. I know it's not the most relevant thing.
Yeah, we can go through everything.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to people to hear all the little ins and outs. But like you said, it's so difficult to get into a country at war, obviously. And so it just means it takes a really long time. So I did the whole flight to Frankfurt, Germany, and then to Warsaw, Poland, and then the drive turned out to be what, like 15 hours?
15 hours. It's kind of like going back in time as well, rather than even like it's not even going into war. It's like going back in time because everything here is old school trains and cars. That's the only way you can get anywhere. And all the Soviet cars we saw in the Donbass as well. It's like literally going back in time.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
So by the time I got here, that kind of started the trip off on an interesting note because it was really hard to sleep, obviously. You get in, the sun's up, and I'm like, oh gosh. And I tried to nap in the car, but it was also tough, and I haven't really, I've technically slept, but I feel like I haven't slept since that
Yeah.
that night.
Well, I remember getting the text message saying that you were sorted. And then we met up, and it was Independence Day for Ukraine, celebrating the breakaway from Russian occupation. And everyone was wearing Ukrainian flags. This is what I love about this country, is every day seems to be on the calendar like some sort of celebration for something. So we went to a festival, and was that a little strange? Did you imagine that there were still festivals happening? I mean, this is people still celebrating life every single day.
Yeah, that I knew just because of your content, and the fact that people still, like you said, celebrate life, but was so inspiring to see in person. That's something I keep bringing up in the content we've done so far, which is because of your content and others, I knew this wasn't the case, but still my heart kind of had a hard time not believing that people would just all be hiding inside all day.
Yeah.
Not knowing what was going to happen, in a sort of depressed mood, given all the tragedy that's happening. But it's actually the opposite, where it's, if we're going to be dealing with all this tragedy, of course, we have to make the most of the moments that we have. And so to see the celebratory nature of a lot of people, not just in Kyiv, but also when we were up close to the front lines and people still in those cities, civilians, having really sweet mannerisms and treating us very well and working at restaurants, etc., knowing at any moment the next building could be them, that has been probably the most striking element of this.
Each one of us lives their own life here. They have their own history here. And that is precisely what we are defending. Even as military personnel, we spend a certain amount of time in different cities. And this already builds our history. We are already writing it here and already have certain memories, certain people we meet. And we preserve all of this. And we protect it from the evil that is constantly trying to destroy and incinerate it all. And that's why saying we're fighting for someone else is wrong. No, we're fighting for what's ours.
I think Ukrainians have developed this adoration for life and this lust for life and love. I first arrived here on Valentine's Day back in 2023, and I could see old ladies selling flowers outside of sandbags, outside of blown out buildings. Because when you have Russia as your neighbor, it's killing people every single day. And I think it really makes you value life and the point of living. Because you don't know what's going to happen the next day. You don't know if you're going to be in a building that gets hit by a cruise missile. I think it really creates a spirit here of people to celebrate life. And also as like an act of defiance as well, right? Russia want to take life away from this country. They want to drain it of life. This is what we saw in the Donbass. Boarded up windows, destroyed shopping centers, anything where people can celebrate gets destroyed. And as an act of defiance and resilience, that's why people make a point of celebrating love as much as possible. That's why the city looks so beautiful. And if you remember as well, in the Donbass, there was like still gardening happening. There were still people planting roses for the summer with artillery going on in the distance. But that festival was, I guess you were still a little jet lagged. So I think you were just like realizing where you were.
I think
I threw you into
so
the
wait,
deep end.
guys, picture arriving here, and I know what we're about to do. I know that we're gonna have to be like strapped up in protective gear. I'm being told about what, drones coming up over your car and then blowing up your car and the streets we're gonna be driving, and so that's where my head's at. And then I arrive here, and Caolan's first suggestion on the night before we leave is to go to a music festival. So then I'm tired and I'm standing just listening to boom, boom, boom. Bah. I'm like, whoa, this was not the experience I was expecting, but it was very fun. It was fun.
It was fun. And some of the areas of the festival as well had like World War II planes flying over. A lot of it was kind of related to war as well, but they put it in with the music. It was pretty iconic the way that they did it.
Yeah.
But I guess, was there a moment where you woke up the next day and realized where you were headed next, and you just sort of thought, oh my gosh?
No, I'd already been kind of stressing about it, so I tried to stop stressing and just take it one moment at a time.
Yeah.
So then we did. We left that next day and drove with a medic.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We're saying name. Okay. Cool. I never know. And did the whole drive. I've never seen someone be so bold to military border enforcement people.
Yeah, so imagine the scene, we're driving through military checkpoints.
Yeah.
There's like 50 of these to get in between cities. And how would you describe what she was doing? Literally holding up her badge.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer for F's sake.
One of the soldiers was like, what is your purpose of coming into this region? And she was like, what the F do you mean is my purpose? I'm a soldier. And the guy was like, all right, go. So funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we get in, and are we saying city names? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we were driving in, and I remember it was pretty fun. We went all the way. This was quite interesting for you to see because we drove through Kharkiv, which is the second biggest city in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like 1.5 million people, but you didn't even really see that because it was pitch black because it's close to the front line. All the energy stations are bombed. But she was still playing like country music in the car and American music, and I think you realized this strange thing that in the east of Ukraine, they just keep playing American music everywhere.
Yeah, we listened to Nicki Minaj in the war zone.
On the way.
That's iconic.
So where we drove to, and we can overlay this as a map, was a city called Kramatorsk.
Kramatorsk, yes.
Kramatorsk. Had you heard of Kramatorsk before?
No.
Okay, yeah. Well, the Russians... So
I mean, I've heard of it, but it's not like I would be able to recount the name.
it was important to go there. I wanted to take us there because the Alaska talks, everything that Trump and Putin is talking about right now is the Donbass. It's all about the Donbass. And Kramatorsk is like the jewel of the Donbass. It's the biggest city there, and it's right in the center of the ridge. And that's what basically all this is about right now. And so to be in it and to see it and to see what it is physically is vital. But it's pretty dangerous. You know, even myself, I was pretty worried. I go there all the time but about taking you because of the responsibility. But again, you can't see the truth and really be able to talk about something unless you see it for yourself. So I think this was worth the risk.
What are the biggest risks right now with Russia's new push? What's your biggest concern?
What am I afraid of? I'm afraid because they enter any village there. Even when, people have left, people have evacuated, where an evacuation is happening, women and children remain there. Sometimes they stay. In the Zaporizhia region, they would come in. There were barracks there. Well, different ones, from Russia would come in. They would take grenades, throw grenades into the basement where women and children were. Or they would set fire to tires, douse them with gasoline, prop the door with a stick, and throw the tire onto the ramp. They raped a woman old enough to be his mother, like 60 or 70 years old. That's their motivation.
We arrived, what, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., late at night?
Yeah.
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 What did you think when we first arrived? Actually, I guess what I would say is the accommodation is pretty standard. Accommodation. So April's living.
It's amazing. I mean, well, why did you say it like that? The amenities were really great.
So most of the soldiers in the city live in abandoned houses, or because there's a lot of civilians who left, right? Who had to leave because this place is being bombed every single day, and the soldiers can rent out these apartments and send the money to the civilians that own them. And so we stayed in an abandoned house that a soldier was living in, and she cleared out the spare room for you. And it was pretty bare bones. Was it what you were expecting? It was kind of like...
It was better than I was expecting. You prepared me for sleeping in, like, the forest with the soldiers.
Well, there was a plan to do that.
Yeah, so I was ready. But, no, it was good. It was good. The cats, there were a lot of the pets get left behind, too. And so there were a bunch of pets all around.
That's one thing
And I bonded with one of them.
Everywhere you go on the front lines in Ukraine, whether it's Sumy or Kharkiv or Kherson, there's cats, kittens in every soldier's house because it's just this like lovely companionship that Ukrainians have with their pets. But yeah, there was like rations, and I guess that's the first time you'd seen these. It was pretty. Let me think of how to rephrase this. Did you sleep well on the first night?
The hesitance you might be feeling for me is, given the subject we're talking about, I don't want to be like, it was hard to sleep. Like, I just think that feels strange. But no, I did not sleep well any of the nights. But that was the most important thing.
When was the first time you heard a sort of distant explosion? Was that early in the morning?
I don't remember. But I do remember the second night, it was just nonstop.
Nonstop.
Yeah.
I think this is, I mean, there's an unpredictability as well with places at war. I think so many people think that there's just like a clean front line. And there's soldiers shooting and there's bombs going off.
Yeah.
But I think what we realized pretty quickly is how much of a mess it really is. But the morning we woke up, day two, well, day one, we heard shooting. We went outside for coffee, we heard shooting. And you were like, who is shooting? What's going on? And then we heard a drone buzzing, and April was just sitting there smoking, the soldier, and she was like, "Oh, they're just shooting down drones. This is just what they do. It's like 7 a.m. This is standard."
And again,
protocol."
I don't know, since a lot of my audience is going to be watching this, I don't know how much you're familiar. Some people maybe when they hear drones, it's like, oh, what are they? Are they just cameras or something? Which they do have reconnaissance drones. But the freaky part is when you hear that sound, it is a bomb that flies, right? Like that's what you're dealing with. That if it flies into the building you're in or into you or your car, then, you know, you're very, very hurt or dead. And so to wake up and then, like you said, as she's just casually smoking and relaxing, for her to be saying that right now over our head, a drone's being shot out of the sky that is presumably seeking to hurt somebody around us, is insane. And that people, you know, I keep saying this, but we were there for 2 days and it was terrifying. And people are there their whole life.
Their whole life.
It's not, I'm going to immediately leave and it's like, this is the constant terror that Russia's trying to induce.
Yeah, living in these cities. I think you asked one of the soldiers that I introduced you to, and you were like, what is it like living here? And he was like, well, you just get used to it. Some days there's 40 bombs, there's 40 cabs. Some days it's quiet. You get used to it, which is, even for me, still wild to comprehend. But that day is the first day you put on the armor and we put on the helmets in this picture. It was actually this moment.
Yep.
And we went to a city called Druzhkovka, and I wanted to take you there because this is the city just before Konstantinivka, which is now being surrounded by the Russians. We couldn't go any further than that because FPVs, these are drones, first-person view drones, are hitting the nearby city. But I wanted to show you what it's like being in a city with everyday people, still living their lives, still buying coffee, despite what Russia's doing. And somehow, I don't know why, that day it was silent, and we were sitting there, you know, waiting. I think we were there for about 20 minutes. We ended up taking off our press gear because it was so quiet. But when we got back to Kramatorsk, there was explosions every single 30 seconds, and that was happening there where we just were. I remember you asking me, you were like, Caolan, where is that coming from? And I was like, that's literally the city we were just in. And the commander that we spoke to said there's now like a 50-50 chance if you go there. You go to Konstantinivka, it's like 100% chance of being hit by something. I remember you being surprised because it was like, but we were just there and everything was fine. Yeah. That's kind of how it is. It's one day, everything's okay. The next day, it's being bombarded. And there's videos coming out on Twitter now showing that city that we were in the last 48 hours while we were there, being hit by cabs, being hit by grads, and blowing up buildings, which is...
Explain cabs to people. Controlled aerial bomb?
It basically translates to, yeah, controlled aerial bomb. These are horrible, horrible incendiary bombs. They are about a minimum of 1,000 kilograms. They weigh a ton, and they're dropped from airplanes. And they're so heavy, they basically can't launch like a missile. They're dropped, and they glide into their targets. And there was a building that we showed you in Kramatorsk that basically had two sides, and the entire chunk of it was missing in the middle.
Yeah.
And that was the result of a cab bomb. It is devastating, and the sound of a cab dropping is like a thunder through your feet.
Yeah.
While we were in Kramatorsk, many of them were being dropped on Konstantinivka and the cities around us. And every now and then you could feel that, you know, when we were in the house, you could feel almost the ground shake.
Yeah.
That's what that was. But the next...
Are we allowed to talk about the
drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a funny anecdote to me.
I think we were about buying the moonshine.
We don't have to like say the specifics of how we bought it, but yeah, it's prohibition there.
Well, so yeah, the whole of the Donbass is prohibition, so you can't buy alcohol, and that's for good reasons. The Russians are completely disorganized, and they're all drunk, and they're a complete mess. And the Ukrainians are much more organized with their military, and you know, soldiers drinking doesn't work very well, so you can't buy alcohol. Unless,
Well, you can if you really have the passion for it.
unless you're someone like us who is a little nervous
Yeah.
coming in, and it's all right. And there is one store with black bin bags, and you witnessed the purchase of that. How would you describe it?
Suspicious. But yeah, I just thought as I tried to. Okay, so first, before finishing that thought, for context, for the viewers and listeners, one thing I've been dealing with the last 24 hours is struggling to think of and synthesize our experience into words that will help you resonate with that experience. Because that's the whole point. It's not just for us to have this experience and to see these things, but then to convey it effectively so that people get the truth and get a closer look at the reality of Russia's war against Ukraine. But then we have some of these moments, and turning that into something that listeners can kind of themselves process into a meaningful thought and experience, I think is really difficult because it's such severe feelings. And then explaining that when I'm used to talking so casually is difficult. So some of these anecdotes I think just serve to give you a little bit of a storyline to follow and to bring yourself in the room with us. And this is one of them where we're sitting and you can feel like under your feet and drinking illegal alcohol. And, you know, the medic we were with is just like totally relaxed, just living her life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we'll be okay, you know? It's such a contrast.
I remember the first time I was in the Donbass, you could buy moonshine in Coca-Cola bottles, which was made from potatoes, in the back of Babushka's gardens there. And it wasn't, you know, soldiers aren't getting drunk, but it's for volunteers, it's for people visiting, and it's for civilians to kind of help cope with life every day. Because a lot of people, I mean, I think it sort of takes the edge off, right? It's extremely insane situation.
Yeah.
And every single time you hear a thud through your shoes, you don't know if the next one's going to be where you were standing. So it's really hard to describe what it's like in these towns. And again, we were going between 3 or 4 towns that were the major cities / towns that most of these political conversations are about.
Yeah.
And so that night was, let me just look back here.
Yeah, so, well, kind of on the timeline, after we went to the town, Druzhkovka, we went and met with soldiers somewhere in a secret location.
The training ground.
The training ground.
Oh, this is where you saw the drone.
Oh gosh. Okay, yeah.
So we're arriving at this place. So the commander of this car, he's super cool, right? He doesn't speak that much English, but he's like, I'm going to take you somewhere interesting. And we're driving through this kind of like barren landscape, overlooking the whole of Kramatorsk. The earth is scorched. There's munition holes in the ground. And then you just turn around to me and you're like, Caolan, what did you say?
That's a drone ahead of us. And again, I'd been told that if you see a drone and it's not a Ukrainian drone and it's flying at you, you know, I don't know, think your final thoughts. So that was the craziest physical experience I had because I was just like, Caolan. I kind of just froze like, that's a drone. I was like, do I jump out of the car? What do I do?
Yeah.
And then the commander was way too calm because you were like,
calm.
That's a drone and it's flying at us. And then he found out it was a Ukrainian drone. So we were okay. But that little series of moments, again, I really, there's so much we're going to share with you about the soldiers' words, their fight, their bravery. And that's really what the focus of this is.
What does a typical day look like for you working here?
From morning till night, we train the guys in tactical medicine. The training is going very well. The guys are very motivated, and we're seeing results. We see results every day, and that just gives us more motivation to work.
In the face of so much bloodshed and fighting, how do you personally overcome fear?
It's hard for me to say now, because I've been in this war for a long time, and I perceive everything differently. That is, fear is always present, but you need to accept it Just accept it and understand that it is nearby and not to panic. Think about what I can do so that this fear does not conquer me and does not destroy me. I don't think about fear. I focus on the positive. Everything I do, I try to do positively. That is, not to think about it, but to focus on the goal, the result.
And so I do want to make sure that that's our focus and not just my fear.
I think your fear is important because it's like, this is what it is like. These are the threats nonstop that civilians have to live with every single day. And the first time I saw a drone was in Kherson, and it's like this pit at the bottom of your stomach, and you just know. I mean, I remember someone asking me, why isn't there footage of drones in Kherson? Why isn't there much footage of drones? And I said, because if you're filming a drone, it's the last thing you're ever going to film.
Yeah.
And I guess that was running through your mind. But it takes a few seconds for the commander to basically just double check the antenna, the frequency, and see if it's Ukrainian. So I remember that moment distinctively. But that's also, it was important to see that because that's what civilians have to go through. They see a bird in the sky and they think it might be a drone.
Yeah.
And it makes it scary to even look up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they go, oh, it's Ukrainian. And you're like, oh,
thank God.
Oh my God. What? And then I'm like, it's weird I'm not having any life revelations right now. I'm just sort of like, okay. I would expect I'd be like, all right, I'm going to be nicer now.
But we drove into this forest and we have to, censor the footage to make sure that it's not going to get hit. And there are hundreds of soldiers here and they're basically on a 4-week training course before they head to the front. And they were training for the most hardcore shit possible. These are like storming trenches, assault positions, and zero-line firing. So I remember the first time we heard that sort of gunshot, but we didn't really know exactly what they were training for, so it was a little on edge.
Yeah. And then one of the spookiest moments was one of the soldiers we were talking to. We heard the v above the trees.
Another drone.
And we're like, is that also Ukrainian? And he was like, probably, but we do know that the Russians already spotted us, so it's a matter of time.
But, yeah, well, I remember saying, like, do the Russians know you're here? And they said, yeah, a couple of days ago they found out. I said, well, what's going to happen? And they were like, well, just a matter of time, any second. Which I guess created a new level of edge for what we were doing there. Because, at any second there's a command center on the Russian side that's waiting to press a button and drop a cab on that site. And we'll get into that in a second because that's what we thought might have happened the day after. But it was really amazing to see these guys as well. And I'm so glad that I could introduce them to you because whenever Steve Witkoff or Trump's entourage talks about these regions being Russian and Ukrainians there speak Russian, so they want to be part of the Donbass. They voted in referendums saying they want to be part of Russia. So they don't know what they're fighting for. They're fighting for Zelensky's war. And you got to directly ask them, as an American, which was incredible, what are you fighting for?
Yeah.
What did you think of their answers?
For me, motivation is first and foremost my identity. Although I speak Russian, all my relatives, loved ones, and children, they all speak Ukrainian to me. And this identifies us as Ukraine, as the people of Ukraine. I am here, participating in this war for the sake of our future generations. Because I understand that if we don't stop this now, it will continue and it will go further not only in Ukraine, but also further into Europe and everywhere. So the main motivation is the desire for our future generations to live in peace. This is the fundamental motivation.
So powerful. So powerful. And also really similar, which was meaningful to speak to different people who couldn't possibly know what each other's answer was going to be at different times. And all of them to say some combination of, I'm fighting for my home, my family, our freedom, and sort of, because I need to. We have to stop this. We've seen, so the soldiers told us stories of the torture. Probably I wouldn't even want to repeat to y'all, but just the most horrific stuff that Russians do to Ukrainians when they take over. their territory, when they occupy, And so for these guys, this is life or death, not just for them, but for their loved ones. And you know what just kept coming up, not just with soldiers, but we talked to literal children. They were like 14 or something, 13, in one of these towns. And the concern of their loved ones was so prominent. It wasn't just like, I, don't want to live under Russian occupation, or I don't want Russia to take over. It was like, I'm concerned for, even a child was not saying she's afraid for her physical safety. She was saying she's, afraid for her grandma and her aunt and her mom. And that kept coming up, that essentially it's a fight for their collective family.
It's a fight for life. One of the first soldiers that we interviewed had to wear a balaclava because his relatives still live in occupied territories, places like Mariupol or in Donetsk. And if the Russians saw that he gave us that interview and saw his face, they would kill his family. Because I think there was some sort of slight brotherhood in Ukraine that existed before 2020. Well, before 2014, where there was a bit of a synergy, where people
between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, people saw them as maybe it's a brotherhood, maybe it's not. But when people saw in this country the way that Russians treated Ukrainians during occupation in Bucha, in Mariupol, mass graves, portable incinerators, torture for fun. That's when they drew the line, and that's when they realized. But I think that really hammered home the fact that he had to cover up his face because of how real it is.
But then what was so unbelievable was that risk. I know he's trusting we're going to blur his face properly, we're going to distort his voice properly, but that his ambition to get the word out, to tell his story to, we told him, an American audience primarily, and to make sure people know they're not fighting for whatever the Russian propaganda argument is. They're not clueless about why they're fighting. They're not being forced into it, purely because of some military industrial, blah, 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 blah. They're fighting for their family, their future, their independence, and their country. And he was willing to risk his family, risk his, safety, just to tell us that story. It was so meaningful.
The soldiers you spoke to were so glad that you were there, because what they're seeing coming out of American televisions are people like Steve Witkoff, or people on Fox News, or people like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that they're fighting for nothing, that they want to be part of Russia, that when they get occupied, it's fine, or that they should drop their weapons and retreat. And they were grateful to be able to say that because they want the world to know what they're fighting for. And we spoke to every single soldier we spoke to on that battlefield, on that training ground, said exactly the same thing. And I remember we asked the same questions, right? We said, what are you fighting for? And there was always this pause. And they were like, why even is this a question? It's for freedom. It's for our land.
I asked this to every single soldier volunteer I've met in Ukraine. What are you fighting for?
Well, we're fighting for our country. What can be like the other answer?
Simple answer.
Yeah. We don't have other choice because they come to us and kill our people, our families. They destroy our cities. And for example, for me personally, it's really painful to see because, for example, when we arrived in Bakhmut for the first time, it was like a living city. It was pretty much intact. It has shops working, magazines, people walking around, nice alleys with flowers and so on. And right now, just a big pile of rubble. And this slowly, while the Russians move forward, it becomes they took the next city, the Chasiv Yar, for example. Now it's completely destroyed. Konstantinivka is half destroyed already and will be destroyed during the next couple of months. And they are destroying our country, so we don't have other choice than just to fight.
Right.
And I guess one of the reasons I wanted to take you there as well is to see the scale, just how big the Donbass is, how vast it is, mountains, valleys, lakes, giant towns, communities, places that matter. This isn't just a random spot on a map in the way that Trump talks about it. This is communities, people are buried, this is everything.
A history, a culture, a community.
Yeah.
And so when we'd also ask that question, we even played for one soldier, and all this, again, when you hear us reference stuff, it's going to all get posted eventually once we have time to go through it all. But asked a soldier, I hate even saying this, but because it's always being brought up, here's a clip of Witkoff saying, which is Trump's envoy to Russia, I guess is his title.
Yeah.
Of him saying, you know, really these regions that are being fought over, it's just kind of, it's like Russian, it's Russian speaking, it's kind of just fine if it were to be a part of Russia, was the general sentiment. And played that for a soldier, and he was like, I speak Russian. That's because of the, how would you describe it?
He said, I speak Russian because of the Russian colonialism.
Yeah,
like,
but that doesn't, that doesn't mean that I want to allow Russia to take, it doesn't mean I'm not as Ukrainian as the person next to me, essentially. And we have to stop him here. It's not just about land, it's not just about lines on a map, but the protection of our country at large. And we know whatever we hand him right now is just going to be the pretext for a build-up for more. And these are our homes and these are our families. And you've said this to me a couple times. You have these soldiers who are literally fighting to push the Russian front back far enough to get their families back. If, you know, their families are in occupied territories, like the one we talked to. And it's not like some cerebral, theoretical fight for him. It's like, I literally want to push this occupation line back far enough so that I can get my family back.
Yeah.
They're Russian speaking.
Yep.
There have been referendums where the overwhelming majority of the people have indicated that they want to be under Russian rule.
Yes.
I think that's the key issue in the conflict.
So what do you respond when you hear things like this?
Well, some points are like complete bullshit because, like, myself, for example, I'm also Russian speaking, so it does not prevent me from fighting for Ukraine, for example. And I don't think that we should join Russia. And when he says about referendums that people vote to be a part of Russia, that's also a complete bullshit because, like, first of all, they occupied like towns and regions and villages, and after that, like, there are people with AKs walking around, like knocking to your door and saying, "Hey, man, I'm pretty sure you want to be a part of Russia." And I guess, like, yeah, you don't have pretty much of a choice in what to say, because people who protested, they disappeared. And so I don't think that in any way it can be called like a valid referendum.
Right. And that's what it's about. And again, I think it's why it's great that you went there, because it's impossible to imagine it from Kyiv. It's impossible to imagine it from America unless you can see everyday people that volunteered to fight and see the front line. We could almost feel the front line, right? It was 10 kilometers away at one point. That they just want to go. They just want to go home. They just want to get their family back. You literally have to be there to truly understand it, and that's why it's so amazing that you did it. Amazing.
Thank you. And just in case the audience doesn't know, Caolan does this too frequently.
Do I?
So you're so impressive in what you do, and it's important because this is a war, and there's also a massive information war going on that has implications for the on-the-ground war, like I think some people don't even understand. And so Russia thrives off of fear of even getting to the places where you can get the accurate information about what's happening. And that's good for them. That fear of journalists not wanting to go into these places and tell the full story serves their goal. So you're doing amazing, amazing work. And thank you for taking me this go-round.
But it's amazing because Russia doesn't want you there. And that's why our soldier told you to turn off your phone. Because if the Russians see that there's an American phone, that there might be a journalist, they'd specifically target where we were staying. And they've blown up every single hotel in Kramatorsk because they were full of journalists. Because they don't want people seeing what you saw, which is why Ukrainians are fighting, which is the destruction needlessly every single day. Yeah.
There were a lot of moments where, just on a personal note again, where I would start to get comfortable, and it's like y'all could tell I was finally breathing normally. And then you'd be like, all right, let me say something else to freak you out. So we were driving on our way back with a volunteer, and he said, oh yeah, like they'll download all your information if you're anywhere in the vicinity of, I don't even understand the technology of it, but whatever. However, they have a box or something and it takes all your phone's information. And if they saw that you were Luke Beasley, the guy who really hates Putin, they it would be, the way he worded it would be quite the trophy if a soldier got you with a drone or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, why tell me that? Can you wait to tell me that until we're out of here? Really? A trophy? That's so terrible.
It's true, though. It's true, because their target is obviously Ukraine, but their second target right now, and one of their biggest targets, is information. And you getting the information that you got there, you getting the footage that you got there, is infuriating for Russians and infuriating for Russia, because it goes against everything that they put out, every single piece of narrative.
Yeah.
But I remember,
Sorry, keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, on the second day, we decided to head to a town above Dobrobylia. This has been a very dramatic situation there. Basically, there's a city called Pokrovsk, which the Russians are surrounding right now, and the Russians decided to do a motorized assault on, motorbikes and dirt bikes over and towards Dobrobylia. And we drove pretty close to that, and so it was a little bit hairy, but we went there to do an interview with a very famous Ukrainian soldier, just to ask him how things were. He does reconnaissance. I think that was really valuable, because it was an opportunity as well to sit down with Ukrainian soldiers who were in a different area, but could give us a bigger overview. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah. I can't wait to publish some of those clips, because he was so sharp in how he articulated some of these issues.
Just kind of speaking like to my audience, what's your message if you were speaking to just a large group of Americans on anything related to this?
I would definitely go with the whole Ukraine fight is really about American values. It really has so much in common with America, because what we do is we stand our ground, we protect our family, and we literally fight for our freedom, because we know that if we do not fight, Russians will come and take away our freedom. So it's quite simple. It's like, I don't know, maybe I should try to explain it in like burgers or something, but it's really simple. It's sorry for being so anti-American, but I mean, it's very what Ukraine does is very American. It's, I think, the most obvious war that America could ever look at. And if we take Ukrainian way of living, I mean, I'm Christian, and everyone I know literally is Christian. So Ukraine is a very religious country, I would say. And in the region where I come from and my wife comes from, they literally go to church each Sunday and so on. It's kind of a national tradition. And this is very similar to the United States as well. And I find it really hard to understand why Americans think that, well, some really small fraction of Americans, why they think that Russia is in the right in this conflict. But what I know for sure is that really a lot of Americans, they stand with Ukraine, and this is reflected in the national policy, because if I know that a lot of politicians, they really hate Ukraine. At the same time, the nation, American nation, they are not allowing them to slip into complete bullshit. So that's quite cool, I would say.
Can you share a message to Americans about this war?
Regarding the war, I can say one thing to the American people. A lot of disinformation and deceit comes from the Russian Federation. And this is happening everywhere because they are pursuing their own goals and are ready to do anything. They have imperial interests and ambitions. We know this. This is not the Russian Federation's first war with other countries. And they are trying to portray us in a bad light. In fact, everything that is happening here is a war for our existence. They want to destroy us as a nation, a state, and our identity. It is not beneficial to Russia to have a state on its border with people who think freely, who are independent, who want to be civilized people, and want to live in peace. And they will stop at nothing to destroy us. Therefore, I would like to address the American people and emphasize that everything the Russians tell you so nicely, portraying us in an unfavorable, bad light, is all a lie. We don't claim what isn't ours. We don't want what belongs to others. We are defending ourselves. We want to live in our territory in peace. We want to live on our land. We want to be friends with everyone, but we're forced to defend ourselves.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember we asked the same question to every single one of them again, and they had, even though they were in a completely different area, the same thing about wanting the Russian army out of their country, and what they were fighting for. But the significance of that was we started driving back to where we were staying, and that's the first time you saw the front line, because you turned right and just saw these smokestacks, and we can overlay the clip of it.
Yeah.
What did you think when you saw that?
I mean, it's terrible. And then I hope we can plug in the clip, but if we can't, I'll describe it. The wonderful April is such a firecracker. Because I was like, what are those? She said, that's the war. I just watched that clip back. I will plug it in. But she said, that's where people are fighting each other.
How close you are. That's literally the war right there.
Billows of smoke.
The Russians and the Ukrainians are fighting to the death right now.
I was like, okay, but why is it so close?
She was like, well, we weren't going to tell you till later, but we did just go past the front line.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's just horrific. And it's what's so weird is, I don't know if it's just like movies or something that portrays the reality of war, but you're in this beautiful town. And like the view of, I can't remember if it was the sunflower spot or not, but you look over this beautiful landscape and then huge smokestacks, right? And it's like this, and we were driving through a beautiful sunset and the same thing. Or you're looking up at the most gorgeous stars because there barely is any power going on and, you know, there's no light pollution, and hearing explosions. And that contrast of like beauty and suffering, also, I don't think people know much. I think people picture a war zone as something different than it is. Different than sitting at a restaurant with a 14-year-old server.
Do you like pizza?
Amazing. Yeah.
Who is living in that town still and who is just hoping the war will end and she can be safe with her family. Like, that's the story that we get to bring to people, I do think is not what people expect.
No, it's never what you expect. And the further east you go, you know, more darkness follows. Cities get drained of life because where the Russians come, darkness follows. Electricity goes, businesses close down. But the Donbass is so beautiful. I think so many people don't realize what it actually looks like when you're there. Just the rolling hills. It's like something from the Shire. I think that's why there's so many analogies about Mordor and about Lord of the Rings as well. But we, if you remember, before we drove back to Kramatorsk, turned right and there were new explosions happening in a forest. And April was saying there could be Russians in that forest in civilian clothes. And then it made us realize that there were spies all over the place. And we were sitting at a table in this town near Dobrobrilia. And we can overlay this, but there were a couple of guys sat behind us in perfectly matching T-shirts, pretending to type on their phones, looking at us, taking photos
photos of us.
The whole time.
Like, guys, picture this. We'll find this clip, but he goes, and like grabs his eyes and then clicks the side of his phone. So strange.
Very suspicious.
And then right when we get up, they stand up and leave. They were there the whole time. I mean, they got there like after we'd been there for a little while, but then they stay for 40 minutes or something. Stand up right when we stand up, leave in an unmarked car or something like that.
No registration plate.
Yeah.
Weird. And April, the second we got in the car, and we can use this, April was like, did you see those guys?
I don't like those guys that sat there the entire time. You're recording? They sat there. The one guy was clearly paying attention to what we were saying because I faked fucking text.
I don't think he liked
them. As soon as we got up to leave.
We were like, yeah. She was like, could have been Russians, could have been anyone. And that's also part of what war is. It's not just people fighting with guns. in a trench, it's not just bombs, it's espionage, it's spies everywhere. It's not trusting your neighbors. I mean, if you remember, even April was saying, and other soldiers were saying, you've got to be really nice to your neighbors in places like Kramatorsk, because the Russians try to pay people to do sabotage, to take photos of tanks. And that's where everything gets so messy
and to say,
chaotic.
you know, she was saying that you have an interaction with a neighbor, you might think it's fine, then they find out you're a soldier, and then they could get paid to share that information, and Russia does a strike on your house.
Yeah, and the Russians infiltrate all over the place. I mean, they've been sending people into the Donetsk region for a long time. So there's, I think people, you know, it's not just the artillery, it's not just the gunfire, the fear, there's also this suspicion all over the place. And that's what Russia does. It's to create this mistrust in society. Even back in the Soviet occupation, they used to break apart families as soon as people graduated college and send students and graduates all over different parts of Russia and Ukraine to break people apart. So there's no sense of community. And that still kind of exists in places like that. So there's always an edge. But we had a pretty hairy moment, because after we saw that forest and after the spies, we were just about to get to Kramatorsk.
Alleged spies.
Maybe spies. We were just about to get to Kramatorsk.
They could have been Ukrainian too. Sorry, I should note that.
It could have also been the
factual.
security service.
Because they could have been like, who are these two boys?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a random American guy with a huge YouTube channel out of nowhere.
What's up, guys? It's like, this is weird. Why do they have so many cameras?
So it could have been this.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
But I don't know if you remember the moment, and we should show all these clips. We're driving straight down the highway, and you can suddenly see a giant pitch black plume of smoke. And we turn around to April, and we're like, that's next to the wind turbines. That's next to where the training ground is. And she was like, we're going to have to go there right now.
I need to get to where my soldiers are to make sure that they're okay. That's all I can think about right now. That's it. That's all I can think about. I have a full IFAC, and I have my medical bag that has some extra trinkets and Israeli bandages, and every soldier should be carrying an IFAC on them.
Okay.
And it's the most immediate thing that I think about. I have to go. It is my absolute 100% duty to go to make sure that my soldiers are okay in this moment. I have no choice. That's just it.
And I think that's when my stomach dropped as well, because I thought that the soldiers that we had just interviewed had been hit.
Yeah.
Because they described...
And she kept saying that looks exactly like where they just were.
And if we remember, the day one, they said the Russians know where we are and they're going to hit at any moment. And that's when I thought the moment had come. And this was black smoke. You know, when a missile hits something, it's not like a constant smokestack, like from a chimney, right? It's not a burning. It's a plume that sits in the sky. And we saw this all over the place. And that's what that was. So something hit somewhere.
So we start flying down the road, then getting off the road, driving, trying to find where that smoke was coming from. And luckily it wasn't the guys we just talked to, but
something was hit. Something was hit, something bad had happened, but it wasn't her guys. And I remember April turning around, and she was saying, I'm going to have to think of how many tourniquets I've got right now, how much medical aid I can provide. There could be hundreds of casualties. And you were amazing in that situation. You actually turned around and said, what can I do to help? In this situation, what do you need from me? And she turned around and she said, can you drive this car? And what were you thinking at that moment?
Yeah, because the plan that started to develop, because it was sort of like, we have a 10-minute drive to where that looks like it is. Well, where the guys are. And if that was against, you know, them, there's going to be obviously a lot of casualties and a lot of injuries. And so the plan that kind of came together was that I'd drive from where the bodies were, and then the fear there is there would be, they call them a double tap, is that what it's called?
Yeah, so the Russians like to hit rescue workers. So they'll hit somewhere, they'll wait 20 minutes, they'll hit it again, or they'll do a triple tap. It's totally evil.
Yeah. And so the idea is get the injured guys into the car and drive them away from that exact target so that they don't then get hit again. And so we're going to kind of like, we're getting a plan ready to shuttle the guys who are alive out in case there was more strikes there. And that was another moment of just, again, I say this personal experience not because we went through anything to the caliber of what the people around us are going through, but because I think if this little microcosm experience can give us some insight into the macrocosm of what people every day are dealing with, I do think it's valuable. I've never felt that sharp of a feeling. And it was like a weird blend of grief already, because we had just talked to those guys and laughed with those guys, and anxiety, and then just panic. Like, if they do strike while I'm grabbing people, I obviously don't want to die, but I know that we have to help. And so to have that just like pulsing, where I'm almost like, am I going to throw up? But also a weird sense of just presence, you know, this is all you can do is just take it 1 second at a time. And then it was just similar to the drone. It was like, once we found out it wasn't them, we couldn't find where it actually came from. Just to feel that all drain out of your body is, I think, why when you come back from that, both of us, I can't think. No. Because you have those little cycles of like extreme adrenaline and then it subsides and you think you're fine and you know, we are fine, but you are just kind of like, I don't know what just happened. It's just too much. I'm happy that you jotted down so many things because we are bringing back a lot of these memories, but it's weird how quickly you're like, if it weren't for us literally going there to tell the story, I would want to just like, watch TV or something.
Well, the human brain isn't designed to be in these situations, and it tries to forget, it tries to wipe it out, because these are traumatic situations to even be in. But it's why so many people that we spoke to say, if you ask them what their plans are, what are you going to do in the future? What do you want to do next year? And they say, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah. That's why they just celebrate life every day. That's why the festivals still happen. But
I had a soldier tell me that I asked, like, how are you staying sane through friendship, kind of was the question-ish. And it was like, you know, of course we rely on each other, but it's also hard to make a ton of friendships because you start to get too tired of making friends and then losing them over and over.
How do you get support from your fellow service members? Like, how do you rely on each other to stay sane?
Your brothers in arms help keep you sane. You're aware of the weather, like rain or heat, as you say, to have motivation, so that...
You know, everyone feels fear. Being next to your brothers in arms, right here in these training sessions, we have wonderful instructors, really wonderful instructors. I see how everyone is trying hard and wants to, well, get the maximum, to get the most they can out of these sessions. And it feels like being a kid at camp, at a pioneer camp. Well, something like that.
And so I think connecting it back to the bigger picture, that is the idea. That's what Russia is trying to do, which is cause that cycle of like intense fear and then calm, but you're kind of exhausted from it, and fear and calm from it. Because like you said, it would just get quiet and there'd be nothing for a while. And then it's just like boom, boom, boom. And then the constant grief of your neighbor just died and you're burying your neighbor, and you're burying this person, you're burying, or soldiers, you're losing this friend, you're losing this friend. And just cause people to go, anything's better than this. Even occupation, right? Like that's kind of the psychological game that's being played to cause enough pain and grief and loss that people go, fine, anything is better than this.
Yeah. It's wild summarizing everything that we've done, even in just a week. But there was another moment that I remember where we went to a restaurant that I used to go to every single night. And I showed you videos of us laughing there, doing shisha there. The manager used to help us fix tires whenever we were driving to Chazov Yar to get them fixed. And it was exactly how it was. And I remember you walking around and an air raid siren started. And I think I wanted to show you that as well, because that's what it looks like where Russia comes. They put the missile that hit that restaurant that was full of people was an S-300. This is designed to blow up battleships. And they put it into a restaurant full of innocent people. And you could still see pieces of dinner plates all over the floor. And I showed you the videos of the aftermath. And I still struggle to think about it. What was your response walking in that door and just seeing it?
Yeah, I think that one was so resonant, particularly painful because I think, again, maybe it's just the Hollywoodification of everything, but like you watch enough TV shows where war-torn towns are shown, or even documentaries, and you're kind of thinking like, oh yeah, buildings are all torn apart in those towns. And your brain, because we just can only handle so much grief, goes, it kind of detaches the image of it from the reality of it. So when you look, even when we're driving by buildings that have been blown up, it's sort of like, wow, that's crazy, that building's all ripped apart. But my brain and my heart's not going to let me go, now let me picture all of the human lives that were lost there, right? So you're just kind of like, you're just seeing it as a scene from a movie. And then, because I don't know anything about those restaurants, I don't know any of the people, and I think that's the defense mechanism, is to detach those two concepts. But then you show video of someone you knew who was there when it happened, filming while it was happening, and of you at that. So then all of a sudden, the humanity comes back to it, and we're not just standing on top of rubble, but I can look at right where we're standing, the laughter and the joy that was happening right before, and picture better this whole scene of people where we're standing, and then to then open your eyes again and see just destruction. And like you said, you can still see the forks and the knives and the whatever is real. That's what's actually, that's the real story around each one of those wrecked buildings. It's not just a wrecked building, it's a wrecked dozens of lives.
There was a supermarket we went to right after that as well that I wanted to take you to because it's on a list to be hit by the Russians, and it probably will very, very soon. And I wanted to show you what a place looks like as well, knowing the inevitable is going to happen, and seeing the cashiers, seeing people go in and buy flowers, seeing people buy fresh fruit and vegetables and grapes and dinner for that night, and knowing that at one point I'll text you in the next few weeks and tell you that it's happened. And I think that gives you an even bigger perspective of not just what's happened, but what's going to happen. I mean, that town, that city is at one point going to be surrounded, and the house that we were even living in could be taken by the Russians at one point.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible to comprehend what could be lost until you've actually been there and lived there and seen those places and seen that 14-year-old girl who just wants to live her life. And I remember there's so many people in the Donbass as well, and you ask them what they're going to do tomorrow or the next day. There was one girl that told me that she used to love horse riding and she wanted to be a doctor. But since 2022, life has been on pause. Everything has stopped and time has stood still.
What is their greatest hope for the future?
A world where everyone has equal opportunities.
For the war to end, I would build my future in Ukraine.
For the war to end, so everyone can live in peace, because, to be honest, I'm sick of it. Neither the children nor civilians can live normally because of this.
I remember going to a house in the Donbass, and a guy still had his Christmas tree up. He hadn't been in there in a while. And he said, the clock stopped. He should have taken it down. This was February. But he said the clock stopped and we didn't really have another Christmas since then because everything just goes still. And I guess that was the main takeaway of going there, because that night we got picked up and we got driven back to Kyiv.
Yeah.
But it's amazing you went. And
thank you for bringing me.
You had a very, very unique experience, because that drive, and also driving through Ukraine, also just shows how big this country really is and how vast everything is. You know, it's hours and hours and hours, but you woke up and the sun started to rise and we were driving across the Dnipro River in this city. And I remember saying there are 3 missiles coming right now on the way to Kyiv in 3 minutes. And so we decided to drive across the bridge to get a higher ground to maybe see what was happening. You took out your phone. And that's the first time, I guess, you would have seen a missile impact.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah, it was obviously disturbing. We'll play the video. But you just like see it flash across the sky and then light up. And I mean, the thing that we've already referenced, but being there in the Donbass, it was this, perceived scarier place. I mean, it is more dangerous. And so then I was driving back and I was like, oh, we're back to Kyiv. Okay. Finally, comfort. And then, boom, one of the largest attacks on Kyiv.
It's the second largest attack
ever that Russia has ever done. And it was, so the missile strike happens. We see again the smoke, and then we're like, again, very Caolan fashion. Let's go right towards it for some reason. And so we did, and we were the first people. Probably. I mean, maybe there were like 2 other people around us, but first responders hadn't even gotten there when we pulled up to the building because we were so close. One of the buildings that was hit. And again, I think we're doing our best to put this all into words, but I think some emotions are severe enough and experiences bad enough that it's kind of a impossible task to articulate it in a way that would allow people to share those feelings. And I don't want people to just walk away from this experience being depressed. There's so much that's hopeful about Ukrainians' resilience and their fight for their country and for these principles. But the headlines and the photos and the videos you see on the news, it's not anything comparable to seeing real, you know, again, I don't want to make this too graphic, but just the real pain of these attacks. It's not a game. I was even reading some stories about it and was getting upset because it's just discussed like, and I get it. I discuss it this way too often, but it's like, oh, a big Trump's freaking, you know, just got humiliated. And it's like, yeah, okay.
It's impossible to imagine reading a headline that Kyiv's been hit by missiles or drones until you see children being pulled out on stretchers like you did, until you see there was a young girl holding a teddy bear sitting on the sidewalk that had just come out of that building. I don't know if you remember seeing her. It's indescribably evil. And some people say that I'm hysterical or you're hysterical or other people are hysterical for calling Russia a terrorist state. But what we saw in the aftermath of that strike was terrorism. If this was in Paris and a street looked like that because of a bomb, they would say it was a terrorist attack.
And explain the notable nature, aside from the human toll, of the targets that were hit. Because this, I don't think a lot of people are focused. I mean, I haven't really been looking at the news, but I was shocked by this.
Well, the street that was hit that we were on had 2 very important sites on it. The British Council building, filled with British government employees, that's listed, and an EU delegation building, a European Union delegation building, and both of them were destroyed. Russia knows the locations of those 2 buildings because in 2022, both governments, the EU, Parliament, and Britain, wrote to Russia and listed them as buildings not to be hit. Russia hit them anyway. Russia, a month ago, flew a drone into Polish airspace, NATO's airspace. And it's about doing an FU. It's about laughing at Europe, and it's about laughing at the weakness of the rest of the world to support Ukraine. But it was significant. The British Prime Minister tweeted about the aftermath that you saw, saying it was disgraceful. The head of the European Parliament tweeted, saying this was an attack on our delegation. This is an attack on the European Union. This is what you saw. The political significance of this is huge.
Just because I'm way more comfortable talking about this type of stuff, like the politics of it all, I think that'll give me a nice moment of relief. I do just want to say, right-wingers, every single time Ukraine does anything to fight back, like the operation, what was it called, Spiderweb, the response from everyone is Ukraine's going to pull us into World War III. They're escalating. Blah, 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 blah. Even when they do attacks that don't kill any civilians, are operationally tight.
Yeah.
They go, oh, they're going to pull us into nuclear war. Well, they can't do anything. They just need to keep getting pounded and do nothing in response. And then Russia literally strikes what are supposed to be completely untouchable targets and is escalating with the Western world like that, attacking them directly.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to hear a word from MAGA about it. They're not going to say Putin's pulling us into an escalation of a war.
They bombed a British government building and a European. They bombed an American.
Where are you, MAGA?
Yeah, they bombed an American warehouse literally 3 weeks.
Yeah,
ago. Yeah, and that is literal escalation. Bombing in a European Union delegation building is the definition of escalating things. And
he's so smart. Rules with an iron fist. Wow.
Well, you can see now the results of the peace talk in Alaska, right? You saw it for yourself. That was the result of peace. Every 30 seconds, missiles landing, feeling it through your feet, and cruise missiles landing in Kyiv. The number of drones that have hit this city has gone up 300% since Trump has taken office. And he's got his envoy on Fox News yesterday saying that he should be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And you can see the piece, right? You saw the piece.
I don't know how I'm going to cover these stories anymore. I'm going to get so upset. I'm going to get so upset. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You have literally Witkoff saying, oh. Sorry, that was gross. Trump, you're so amazing. You need the Nobel Peace Prize. Look at what you've done with Putin. And then Putin's doing one of the largest attacks ever on the Capitol while he's wrecking the frontline cities, which apparently nobody cares about. It's like, well, that's war.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Ukraine shouldn't have picked a fight, Trump just like 3 days ago. Ukraine shouldn't have picked a fight with such a bigger country.
And I'm sure that Ukraine thought they were going to win. It's going to be, we're going to win. You're going to beat somebody that's 15 times your size.
No, yeah, and they also said Ukraine shouldn't have started this fight with a country that they knew they couldn't win. Russia started this fight with a country they knew they couldn't win, because they thought that they could take this capital in 3 days. Putin thought he could be in this street, in this city, in 3 days. So they actually picked a fight that they couldn't win.
And that's the hopeful part. And I don't hear that out of the Trump administration at all, which is that Russia thought this was going to be a breeze. They did not expect, and this is what's so inspiring, Ukrainians to stand up like they have and to obliterate this invasion over and over again. And yes, Russia is making territorial progress right now, but that is years of inching and inching because of the bravery in the fight from Ukrainians, and we never hear that out of Trump's mouth. Instead, it's, oh, why, they're 15 times your size. Why are you going to fight with them? What does that even mean? If a massive guy walks up to you and punches you in the face, you fighting back is not you picking a fight with him. And then imagine that you go 8 rounds with him and it's like a standoff. That would be very impressive. That's exactly what Ukraine's doing.
You basically summed up Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's actually the grasp of the situation that you've got, I think, from coming here as well is extremely inspiring, because again, I always say, even if you're a MAGA voter and you hate Ukraine, you think it's a Jewish state, it's a homo globo, whatever the hell you think it is, spend 15 minutes.
Why does that one, do people say that?
They do. They say it's like globo, homo, Zelensky in high heels, or it's a Jewish state, or it's Nazi state. They can't make up their mind, right? They're all contradictory. But spend 15 minutes.
A Nazi Jewish gay state. Whoa, that sounds like a party.
It sounds like it works perfectly.
Sorry.
Spend 15 minutes in the places you've spent, and they'll realize which side is on truth, freedom, and democracy. They'll realize what's going on here. And it's amazing that you've seen it. I think it's incredible that you've done
And
this.
that's to people who go, Witkoff got asked, God, I hate bringing him up again, but who is more responsible for this war going on? And just delivered a word salad. He didn't say Russia or Putin. He did not. He started bringing up how maybe, a part of the Donbass should be handed to Russia. But then ask yourself the question, because this is in any conflict, ask this question. If one side, who has the unilateral choice to stop this? If it's a complicated conflict, the answer is one person couldn't really end it. If this person stopped fighting, this side would really wreck them. If this side stopped fighting, this side would really destroy them. This is a case where literally Russia could just stop and Ukraine would be like, cool, let's do peace now.
Yeah.
That's what they want. It's actually, war is complicated, but what started this one is very simple.
Yeah. I mean, you've completely summed up everything that's going on here. Tonight's our last night. And we've got a couple hours until the last time you see a sunset over Kyiv for a while. So I think we should go out and maybe just enjoy the city for one last, maybe have a drink.
Maybe. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Caolan.
I'm amazed that you came, and I think it's incredible. Ukrainians will be so grateful as well for what you've done.
I'm grateful for them.
This is our psychological support center. The drawings collected here are from children from different corners of the world and from our country, who drew them in support of our soldiers. From time to time, we collect various letters from children for holidays and other occasions, and we give them to our service members to support their spirits, their resilience, and their morale. And drawings like these always bring a smile, some memories, some dreams. They inspire us and help us to keep moving forward. Because perhaps the question of our decreasing motivation is more related to our mood. Because yes, we get tired, and yes, it's difficult, but certain values and moments like these, they recharge us, and we keep moving forward and don't stop.